All right, for those that are just joining in or you are landing here in the studio with us, we're going to be starting soon in just about 30 seconds. So if you need to go grab your hydration, if you need to go grab your pen and pencil, if you need to get up and stretch your legs before we go ahead and get ready for blast off, you have got about 15 seconds before we are ready to rock this place. So get yourself ready, and in just a moment, we will be with you. Okay, my wonder friends, we are ready to hit it. I have with me a very special guest. This is Baba Kevin Greene. He is the founding priest and spiritual director of the Lukumi Temple of Healing Light. He is also my godfather. He is also a friend of many years. He is also a teacher. He is also a coach. He is also someone who has cried me through many a challenge. So I have to say, welcome, 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 Baba Kevin. Now, to our audience, you all know how we do it up in here. So here's where we want to get started. I just want to first welcome you aboard. Let us know where you are coming from in the comments. If you are watching us live, let us know if you're watching us live. If you're watching the replay, just put hashtag replay and let us know where you are viewing or listening from. We are here at the studio, and thanks to COVID, we have discovered the beauties of being everywhere at the same time, being virtually all literally around the world. So I'm coming to you from the Northeast here in Baltimore, Maryland, and we've got the Northeast on lock. Baba Kevin is holding it down in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So it is an absolute joy for us to be with you today. Today's conversation, I am fully convinced, will knock your socks off. I want you to just take a minute and wherever you are, just like you used to do when you were kids, blow a dandelion, go ahead and do it. Because we about to blow your mind. Okay, listen, remember what we said earlier this month. May is Recovery and Reclamation Month. So we are here. We talked with Jesse Harless earlier this month about recovery and his fears toolkit, about really being able to shift from addiction to abundance. But here's the key question that I wanted to have Baba Kevin Greene come and speak with you about. Once you recover your life, right? Once you pull it back and put yourself on that pathway of consciously fulfilling your potential, what are the practices that you can put in place to sustain that? So I'll get there in just a moment. But I simply want to say welcome. Now, for those of you that are new to the studio, look, I'm so excited. I'm jumping right in. For those of you that are new to the Practicing Positivity Studio, I want to give you a sense of, first of all, I don't even think I've told you who I am. Dr. Nicole Bossard, and the Practicing Positivity Studio gives you a hint at what this place is about. And if you check your screen, this is intended to be a living, learning laboratory, a design studio for you to come in and learn the tools, and resources for building a lifelong practice and a set of skills and resources that will nurture your zest, your vitality, and those things that help you really have a sense of, yes, this life is worth living. But I just don't inherit that. I have to practice that. So the Practicing Positivity Studio is all about me bringing people into the studio with you, where we can together discover, uncover, and recover those things that give us life, that give us energy, that really give us the the fuel that we need to create the life that really is worth living. Not what somebody told you it was supposed to be, but what you decided it was going to be for you. So that's what we're here to do in the design studio today. So with that, today's learning lab, renewing your energy, reclaiming your life on your terms. I'm here with Baba Kevin Greene. As I said earlier, he is not just a dear friend of mine, but he is also my godfather. He is also my spiritual teacher, and he is the person who is training and teaching me in my own spiritual development. So this is a real treat and a gift for me. But Baba Kevin, I want to give you a chance to first of all share with our listeners, what are the things that, as you are thinking about this title and your own life of recovery and reclaiming and building a life on your own terms, what are the things that you want folks to know about you? I'd love for you to just introduce yourself and kind of pull back the curtain as far back as you are comfortable in letting folks know who you are and the message of reclamation that you have for us today. Oh, hold on. There you go. Go ahead. Now we got your volume.
Now, can you hear me clearly?
Yep, I can hear you clear as a bell.
Good morning, everyone. My goddaughter is very generous in how she describes me. I am a priest of Obatala for 23 years in the Lukumi Yoruba tradition. And I guess the question that you're posing is what is the thing that helps you once you recover? Let me make sure I got the question right. Is that once you recovered your life, that now what are the things that you do to maintain and develop and move your life forward? So
on your terms, to really
on
build
your terms.
You want.
Right. Well, it's kind of interesting because there can be life on my terms, and there can also be life on quote unquote the creator's terms, God's terms. So although I live my life on my terms, I'm always asking for guidance and direction to make sure that I'm in alignment with spiritual law, that I'm in alignment with common sense, that I'm in alignment with some fundamentals of, what are the things that make a life worth living? What are the things that make a life healthy? What are the things that promote mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health? Yes. So I kind of use that as a foundation because that's where I've arrived at today. And that discussion always, it's interesting. One of my mentors, even though she's a mentor by nature of me reading many of her books, Iyanla Vanzant. And one year I was at a book signing and I went to the book signing and I had her sign my book. And what she wrote in my book said, the only purpose in being alive is to know God for yourself. And I was so shocked by what she wrote in my book, because I know her, but years later, I arrived at a point of understanding how profound, how grounding, how perfect what she wrote was, because it made me refocus my mind in terms of, okay, the reason I'm here is to know God as a part of who I am. So it sort of shaped the way that, I was on my journey, but it just sort of gave me a different a focal point. You know how a ship, our lives are like a ship. One of my elders, Bishop Cheese, described, he says, you're going this way and you're off course, then it comes back and you're on course, then you're off course again. So we're constantly not moving in a straight line towards anything, but we're living life through our experiences. And that statement about knowing God for myself was helpful because whether it be, I was raised Baptist and I became Yoruba. But my joke is that when I became Yoruba, it made me more Baptist because it demanded that in order to acknowledge my ancestors, they didn't want to hear Mojuba, our praise prayers that we say to the Orishas and to Egun through that way. They wanted to hear our Father who's art in heaven because they was Baptist and Christian. And to be in alignment with that, I had to learn more about my Christian roots than I ever knew, even before I became even when I was quote unquote Christian. So I always tell people I didn't run away from Christianity. It's just this afforded me more answers. And because I became HIV positive at 23 years old. So I just gotten out the military, and at that time there were no medicines. So it set me on a journey of healing because at the moment that I became positive, I heard your life has changed forever.
Mm.
I didn't hear that I was supposed to be afraid. I didn't hear that I was going to die, although everybody's going to die. But I heard your life has changed. And
Yes.
then once I realized that I was positive, I started learning. I said, well, since I never know if I'm going to die tomorrow, I need to do everything I need to figure out what I'm supposed to do with whatever time I have and make whatever contribution I'm here to make or heal whatever I'm here to heal, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
All of that led me on a journey that at a time in the 90s, I had been positive, probably at that time, maybe a good 10 or 15 years. And there were still very few medicines that were helping people.
Mm-hmm.
And there were later books written that the medicines that people were taking at that time actually had killed them because of improper dosage and not knowing how to administer the dose. But I had something called chronic fatigue. And when I went to my doctor, he told me that I was going to, that if I didn't take AZT at that time, that I would be dead in 2 years. And I was about 28.
Okay.
So I told him, I don't think so, but I was fortunate enough to have a friend, Arnold Jackson, the late Arnold Jackson, recommended me to an acupuncturist in Chinatown who also happened to be a medical doctor, but he was a Chinese medical doctor as well as a Western medical doctor.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually a heart doctor.
Oh, wow.
So I went to this guy and he says, I'm going to stimulate your vital energy and I'm going to stimulate your immune system. I had no idea what this man was talking about. I didn't know anything about Chinese medicine, but all I know is that I went from having to lie on my office floor for 15 minutes in corpse pose, which is a yoga pose, to
Mm-hmm.
try and get some energy because I simply could not function. I
Mm-hmm.
was so exhausted, no explanation for why. Went to my doctors, they had nothing to offer me. And here I go to this Chinese guy, and he does a treatment. After the treatment, I feel normal.
Mm.
And I had energy. And the only thing he said to me was, he said, don't go home and clean your apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go home and work out.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go home and have sex.
Mm-hmm.
He said, let your body integrate this energy. And I kept going to him for about 3 or 4 months and then was very blessed to find a program that treated me for free for a year.
Okay.
Just outside the city. It required me to commute. I had to travel long distance to go and get this treatment, but it was more than worth it because it was about my health. And Chinese medicine is not treating your illnesses, it's treating you. It's treating the core of you. Whatever's going on in your body is treating you
Mm-hmm.
physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And then from that interaction with the late Jack Raquette, who was the acupuncturist I'm speaking about, I got introduced to Tai Chi and then later to Qigong. And
Mm-hmm.
what Qigong is a study of the cultivation of energy. And most people are much more familiar with Tai Chi. Tai Chi is a study of the movement of the energy that you cultivate when you cultivate your Qi. So I guess I have to make a very long story short is that I had the good fortune to study with a Qigong master here in Philadelphia, Master Ho.
Mm-hmm.
And I took some beginner courses and then I took some advanced courses. And the man simply blew my mind
Mm.
because he could do things and he could assess things
Yes.
without touching you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And later on, I by grace, you know, some people know what grace is, but by grace, I stumbled into a bookstore in California and found a book called Mastering Miracles. The book was later retitled The Healing Art of Qigong by Dr. Hong Liu, Hongliu. And that book had something really significant. First off, it was misshelved in the gay and lesbian section. And I'm like, well, what is this book doing? Filed in the wrong session. So then I open it and I look, and it had information on how to use Qigong to help you if you had AIDS, if you had hypertension, if you had high blood pressure, if you had allergies, if you had heart issues. So I had no idea that Qigong was that broad in terms of the things that it could help you with. But that book sat on my coffee table for 3 months, and I never looked at it until I happened. That was the same time concomitantly that I happened to take my first Qigong class with this Qigong master. And then I went home and looked at the book, and I said, "Oh, I had all this information all the time and never knew it." And then I read the book while I was taking that class. And one of the things that the book said was that if you practice Qigong every day for 100 days, that your body would hold the energy. So mind you, I've been living with chronic fatigue, and here I am, Chinese acupuncturist helping me with my chronic fatigue. And then I stumbled onto Qigong, and now I'm practicing Qigong. And I decided that I would do 100 days of Qigong consecutively with the practices that I was learning from Master Ho. So within 15 days, I would be showing people sometimes things about Qigong. I just wanted to share because this thing was saving my life, and it was energizing my life in ways that were amazing. So when I would go to demonstrate, a simple thing like Qi ball, I was acting like I was cool, like I was expecting what was happening. But the truth is that the first time I rubbed my hands together, demonstrating it to someone when I was in that 100-day Qigong cycle, the energy was so intense that when I put my hands together and just opened them, I felt this burst of energy that actually has scared me, to be perfectly honest. But it let me know that the 100 days that I was doing, that I needed to make sure I completed that 100 days. And as a result of that, it really intensified and strengthened my energy. And although I've been living with chronic fatigue even since that time, but that I learned how to manage it in a way that I could without medicine at that time. I didn't go on HIV meds for 33 years because of practicing Qigong and because of Chinese medicine. And the interesting thing is, even though I was always open with my doctors, no one ever asked me what I was doing. No one ever researched it on any level. No one ever even cared. And at a certain point, I said, well, if they don't care, that's fine. But I'm alive and I'm still not on HIV meds, and I'm going to keep going until until they come up with a better combination of medications.
Now, Bob, I want to throw something in here.
Sure.
For people that may not be aware, the time frame that Baba Kevin is talking about with these HIV meds, the meds they were out of their experimental phase, but they were not demonstrating good results for people in terms of their overall health and well-being. And in some cases, it was making people very sick. And in some cases, they were dying after taking the medication. So at this time, for him to find Qigong and to bring it into his recovery practice, it took, Baba, what is it that you saw for yourself that had you willing to kind of say, okay, everybody, all of the experts are saying one thing, but I'm going to go in this direction? What had you be willing to say, I'm going to try this for myself?
That's easy. Common sense.
Break it down. As we all say, common sense isn't always common practice.
Common sense.
Remember, HIV era,
look,
people were dying.
Look, I was working in AIDS. By that time, I had been working maybe 10 or 15 years. I started as an health educator outreach worker. And then I went from that to a crisis intervention counselor. And then I went from that to intake case manager. And then from that to running a program in alternative medicine.
Yes.
And the way that I got to run that, well, let's go back to the beginning with the crisis, with the health educator outreach worker. At that time, now get this, the message was that if you got HIV, you were going to die. That was the first message that we were telling people on the street to try and curb behavior. And what I realized very shortly, in that process was, let me adjust my camera,
Okay.
is that I was telling myself that I was going to die because I knew that I was infected.
Mm-hmm.
So that didn't make any sense to me. So you know what I did? I stopped that message. And
Yes.
at that time, I was learning about psychoneuroimmunology. And that's a real complex word. And all it means is that everything is connected. So the things that you say, the things that you think, the things that you eat, the things that you do, they're all interconnected. So if I was saying, I think at that time, the work of Louise Hay was really prominent. And what it talked about is that you should not say things that you did not want to manifest because you are very powerful because of being given the power of speech. So instead of saying that I was going to die from HIV or telling other people that they were going to die from HIV, I said, well, if you take care of yourself, then you could live long and you could live well with HIV. And I changed the message without asking permission.
Now, I want
Okay.
to pop in here real quick
Sure.
for
Go ahead.
listening. Whatever your situation is, what Baba said, that's a real wisdom bomb. I changed the message without anybody's permission. Remember, what we're talking about is reclaiming your life on your own terms. So he's given two major pieces just right there to stop the negative incoming messages. Be mindful of what's coming in, and you change the message based on where it is that you want to go and what you see for yourself. Thank you, Baba. Sorry.
No problem. You just reminded me of something too. At that time, it was part of it was about what you tell yourself and how that affects you, and what other people tell you and how that affects you. So mostly it was about is that people were telling people, we were trying to educate people, but it also was we were in process of educating ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I was learning things about the power of the word. And I'm not just talking, sometimes when you say the power of word, people, the word, people are thinking scripture, although that has some validity, but it's really the power of your own word, the power of what comes out of your mouth. So I started changing it. And I also did a study of all the things that I was doing that was harming myself. These were things I was in training. I guess somebody said that I was a healer in training, but the only person I was interested in healing was myself. But I was learning about how words affect you. And that's a form of Qigong when you use words and you're cultivating energy. I was learning about how your thoughts affected you. So I was learning how to program my thoughts to be healthier. So it was your words. I was learning to eat better. I was learning to have a better exercise program. Because people look at qigong in a box sometimes, and they see it as just this weird Chinese thing that people do that can improve their health, but it's not for me because it's Chinese, and that's utter nonsense. But what I learned was that qigong, being the science of the study of the cultivation of energy, meant energy on all levels: physical energy, emotional energy, spiritual energy, psychological energy. I mean, on every level, qigong affects you. And here's a trick that one of my first masters I studied with, Master Ho. I distinctly remember he gave us this exercise to do, and he didn't say anything. He just said, "Do the exercise every day." Blah 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 blah. Next week we come in, and people are talking about their week or how was your week, and some people, I had a really bad week. I was going to say shitty week.
We're alive.
So what happened is that the exercise he gave us was designed to bring up old issues and energy that needed to be released. The issues from childhood, issues from abuse, whatever the issues were, this exercise, this qigong, tai chi qigong exercise was designed to bring up your stuff to heal it. Okay, so there were some people talking about how good a week they had. Oh, I had a great week, blah 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 blah. And he knew without even asking that they had not done the practice. Lesson learned. Those of us who did the practice, we got a chance to deal with some issues that may have been unconscious.
Yes.
But the movement that he taught us brought that energy up for the possibility of healing.
Yes.
So that changed. That was another aha moment in looking at how qigong affected you psychologically or spiritually or mental, whatever way you want to call it. For people,
Yes.
I always say when I'm talking to people who believe in creation, who believe in God, then I say spirit. But when I'm talking to people who don't necessarily believe in God or who don't have a faith system, I say, well, your subconscious mind.
Mhm. And actually, let's talk about that, because as we're talking about, reclaiming your life on your own terms, one of the things as we were preparing for today's conversation that you shared was, hey, wait a minute, a foundational piece of being able to do some of the recovery work that you just talked about, bringing up the past stuff so you can heal it, and then also doing the work of recognizing how all of that stuff is connected and reprogramming.
Mm-hmm.
You said a foundational piece of it for you is your spirituality. Talk about that because
Oh,
we're
please.
going to be, people are going to be listening to this. Some are going to be spiritual folks, some are going to be business folks that are spiritual folks, some are going to, as you said, they don't necessarily ascribe to any particular religion.
Mm-hmm.
But talk about this. How can we use spirituality as our foundation, even if, no matter what our faith system is? That's what I want to say.
I really wish I had brought the prayer up. I know where to get it. So if we do an intermission, I'm going to go grab that prayer. But
you got to go with the flow. I trust.
But the interesting thing is that I was never super religious.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I became Lukumi Yoruba, I never really considered myself super religious. It's just, it made sense to me to become this, to incorporate this. But I remember talking to two elders. One of them is no longer with us. My elder, Ia Beatrice, and at night we would have these late night conversations, and she would say, time for me to go to school. And I say, school? Yeah, what you talking about? She said, time for me to go sit with spirit, talk to God. And I was like, really? So, and this would happen. And after a couple of days, I said, yeah, you sit every night? And she said, well, of course. Now, this is a woman who had a reputation for being able to see what was going on with a person to help them to heal. She was a seer. She had the sight at a very profound and deep level, and was able to identify where people needed to grow, where people needed to change in a real-time situation.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I was like, no one ever told me to sit every night, but I started sitting, whether it was night or day. I started sitting on a regular basis because of her and another elder, Ia Pearl, who and she would always say, oh, I just fell asleep at my Egun shrine. And that's an ancestral shrine. Or I just fell asleep at my Bovida. A Bovida is where you sit for your personal spiritual guides, which are not blood relatives necessarily. And so I said, yeah, you sit every day? And she said, well, of course. So, and what sitting is praying and meditating every day. So these women sat and prayed every day. And then I have another friend, Bishop Cheeks, who prays and meditates every single day. And I said, all three of them are exceptional spiritualists. All three of them are exceptional seers. All three of them are exceptional in how they work with people. And I said, well, I believe that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So for me, I started sitting every day. I already prayed, but I really started praying on a regular. So I prayed and I would meditate and I would sit with spirit every day. And then I noticed how my life started changing.
Yes.
So, and one of the things, I'm getting emotional even talking about it because it makes me very emotional to understand how awesome the creator is. She is, and how incredible our ancestors are and our spiritual guides are. And I never saw myself to be someone who would be so moved But I don't do anything without praying.
Now, for folks who may not, again, when you're saying sitting or praying,
Mhm.
they just maybe they don't have a methodology. If there was one thing that you could share with them about, and even if they don't have any of these shrines that you're talking
Mhm.
about,
They
what,
don't need the shrines.
yeah, what could they
Let
do
me,
to,
let me, before we get there, let me just say this.
mm-hmm,
I've been having this discussion with a friend of mine on a regular basis. I said, and one of the things that he, Bishop Cheeks, as you know, really said often was that we are a shrine.
mm,
As people, both those who are consecrated to an energy ordained, and both those who are not.
mm-hmm,
If we were told and if we understood as children, and if we were treated like that, if we were treated like we were holy, because we are,
mm-hmm,
we're holy. Children are holy. Adults are holy too. They just forgot.
mm-hmm,
Children are a shrine. Adults are a shrine too. They just that we were never told.
mm-hmm.
But one of the things we said is that if you realize from childhood that you were holy and that you were a shrine and that you were sacred and that you were worthy, there's a lot of things that you would never allow in your life.
Okay, hold on, Baba, because I got to make sure. Remember, y'all know how we do. I said, grab your pen and paper. What that wisdom bomb that just got detonated is why. So remember, please note for yourself, what would what would my life look like, feel like, be like if I recognized that I myself was sacred, was holy, was precious, was worthy? Please write that in your notes. And my suggestion would be take some time throughout the week to just, as Baba was saying, sit with that. Sit and allow yourself just to meander around in that playground for a while. Please go ahead, Baba.
So when I started looking at that question, in terms of looking at people, and what I see, people first off, we weren't told, we weren't educated like that to understand that we were sacred, that we were holy, and that we were worthy. And part of that has to do with, this whole thing of PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
What am I talking about?
Post traumatic stress disorder. That's what I thought.
No, I'm talking about post-traumatic slavery disorder. That we have
Hmm.
we have wounds that go back so far, but our resilience as people is that we survive even without treatment, even without any therapeutic interventions, any therapeutic healing of our families. I mean, we've had stuff going on generations. And part of what reason why I practice Qigong so diligently is
Mm-hmm.
because it has helped me to see more clearly how to
Mm-hmm.
maintain my own healing, but also how to support my community and my family in healing by not always teaching them teaching them quote unquote qigong, but just by I'm still here. They're like, what's Uncle Kevin doing?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you don't need to preach to people. Sometimes you just need to live the best life you can and don't do any harm to anyone. And maybe even when you have it to give, help someone.
Mm-hmm.
And then your life just seems to keep, I should say my life just seems to be getting better and better because I realized that I was sacred and I realized that I was holy. So there's things that I won't even entertain, not because I'm not better than anyone, but because I have to take care of, I heard this when I was younger, but I didn't understand it and I didn't hear it necessarily in my home. But you got to protect, you got to take care of the vessel so that it will fully function for you. All right. So you got
Mm.
to take care. You got
Yes.
to take care of the shrine. You got to take care of
Yes.
this altar. You got to cleanse it physically and spiritually. You got to cleanse it emotionally. You have to watch what you allow to come into it. That's a form of qigong.
Mm-hmm.
You have to cultivate good thoughts. You have to
Mm-hmm.
cultivate good habits. habits. You have to cultivate good thoughts, good habits, good actions, good activities in your life. It's like people talk about being bored. And I tell them, I have never been bored a day in my life. When I was a kid, if I got put on punishment, I would go, okay, I'd go read a book. And my parents came in the room one time because I was so quiet. They said, "What you doing?" I said, "Just reading a book." And they said, "Get out of here. Go outside and play." And the reason was because I could always find something valuable to do.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
Even with the pandemic, with this pandemic, a lot of people, I would talk to people and they would be talking about how they're bored or how they're this. I'm saying, there's too much going on in the world, too much help that needs to happen, too many people that need help, too many things that need to be done. I can't imagine, there's too much to learn. Learn something new. That's what helps people to age well.
Well, and I think you said something that was so powerful in this whole just dropping that wisdom bomb about, hey, if you really thought of yourself, your whole self, your body, your mind, that higher consciousness spirit, however you understand that element of yourself as a sacred entity, shrine, temple, whatever word resonates. You mentioned that piece, but then you also mentioned being able to, you have to nurture that in the midst of so much going on.
Yep.
And this is where you were going with the prayer.
Right.
In the midst of so much going on, a priority is, how do I nurture and keep nurturing that? And kind of not overextending myself. That's kind of the way that you've been able to go from receiving a diagnosis at a time when people literally were dying to then figuring out, how am I going to have the energy to live the life that I have? And then what I've heard you talk about so far is tapping into spirit, tapping into that part of your reality as a priority, not as a tag along, as a priority, then to say, this is going to be the quality of the life that I want. This is what I want to have for myself. And then you said you share with others as well.
Yes. And I would say, I guess the thing that I should add into that is that I don't tell people what they should be doing. Not even myself. I ask myself, first off, it's important to write down goals. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you want, one of my favorite public speakers, is Tony Robbins. And one of the things that I love about him is that he synergized, and also Les Brown, that they synergize information from some great teachers. There was this thing called neuro-linguistic programming, and it was a way of changing how you thought and ways of understanding how people communicate and how people communicate with themselves and how they can empower or disempower themselves based on their physiology and their psychology and their words and their actions. So one of the things that I've learned, and that Qigong just reinforces all of the time, is that what I put into the practice, I'm going to reap exponential benefits. So I practice sometimes more than once a day. I always practice. I made it a non-negotiable. You know how you have your sand and then you have your concrete. My concrete is, I'm doing Qigong every day, no matter what. Okay, because of what it does for me. But the same thing applies. Like, prayer is selfish. I pray because I care about myself, and prayer is self-full. I pray because I pray for myself and I pray for other people, and then I let it go. I release it. Because a lot of times people are praying and they think that they can control other people. They think they can control situations. You can't control anything. What you can do, though, is that again, there's this concept of grace where you pray, for the best for a person,
Yes.
and hopefully their spirit will want to receive the best. But if you're praying for the best for someone and they don't have room to receive the best,
Mm-hmm.
they might not get the best, but they might get something that will help them. You understand what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
But in my practice, qigong both energizes and soothes my spirit.
Mm,
Qigong both energizes and brings healing to parts of my body. Qigong both nurtures and expands how I view things and how I think. And one of the reasons I think that happens is because Qigong, when you do Qigong, almost every movement is connected with the breath,
mm-hmm.
which means that you end up breathing at a level that you probably haven't breathed since you were a child. Because
Mm-hmm.
children breathe in completely.
Mm-hmm.
Adults barely breathe,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they don't want to make noise when they breathe. They don't want to be heard breathing necessarily. And,
Mm-hmm.
and when I realized this is after I had been studying Qigong for a while, and then I was in the elevator and I noticed that people were holding their breath.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my goodness, now I get it.
Yes.
Breathing is the key to living.
Mm-hmm.
Breathing is the key to your energy.
Yes.
Breathing is the key to feeling really vital and being clear and feeling. So what
Mm-hmm.
happens when the animal's in fight or flight, what it does when it's in danger is it stops breathing. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, please don't see me, please don't see me, please don't see me. If I don't breathe, then I won't be in danger,
Yes.
But when that happens, the body's secreting a poison into your system called adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And since we no longer live in a fight or flight kind of environment where we're not being hunted per se, but we still have a high level of stress all the time and a high level of adrenaline,
Yes.
Qigongs brings that adrenaline down, like
Mm-hmm.
really reduces adrenaline in your system, and your body secretes more endorphins into your system when you practice. So
Ah.
that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons why it's so powerful,
Mm-hmm.
even if you only practice 15 minutes a day.
Well, we are at just about a quarter to the hour. So one of the things that I always like my guests to do, we've been talking a lot about Qigong, and for people that have no understanding of it,
Mm-hmm.
something that you can share with them so that they can have an experience of what you just described.
Sure, I'm going to show you.
Okay.
Just rub everybody that's present. Just rub your palms together. This is a simple exercise I do just to help people to have an idea of what qigong is.
Mm-hmm.
It's very simple. Now stop, but make sure your shoulders are relaxed in your body, and slowly just open your palms and imagine that you have a taffy between your palms, and then slowly start to close your palms. Try to anyway. Sometimes you'll feel that.
Oh, we just lost you, Baba. There we go. Whoop, you went back out. So I think we have your audio, but we no longer have your visual for the moment. Okay. So while we get Baba Kevin back in to complete or take us to this next level on Qigong, there you
There it
are.
is.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep. We got your
All
audio
right.
and visual.
So when you opened your palms and then tried to close them, what did you feel?
For me, it felt like um, something stretchy, like you said, like taffy.
Mm-hmm.
I could, feel something expanding or like a very gentle bubble expanding.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing. Once you become aware that that energy is there,
Mm-hmm.
you can open your hands wider
Mm-hmm.
and you will still feel even if your hands were this wide away, you would
Mm-hmm.
still feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sometimes when I did a demo for a group one time where I didn't know that this was going to happen. But what happened is I stood in front of a person and I asked them what they felt, and they felt the energy, of course. And
Mm-hmm.
then I started backing up. Their eyes was closed. Their eyes were closed. Okay, so I started backing up, and they were still telling me what they felt. And then I moved my hands around their body, and then I started telling them what was going on with their health.
Mm.
I was 30 feet away.
Wow.
Now I pretended like I was cool, like this was an everyday occurrence, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it was over, I went and talked to a friend of mine. I said, "Oh my God, I didn't know that that was possible."
Mm-hmm.
But it
Mm-hmm.
helped me to understand. And energy can be sensed and felt over a great distance.
Yes.
You know, even and the internet, has really changed things in terms of people understanding just how true that is.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would say is that even that little thing I showed you, you
Mm-hmm.
can you can play with it at home. You inhale
Mm-hmm.
and then you exhale, and very slowly, and then inhale, and you can make it wider.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you practice that little exercise, you could do it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then just place your hands below your navel, just one hand on top of the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to give you a very nice feeling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very, very simple. But
Yeah.
if people have an interest in understanding more about Qigong, there's a zillion books. One of my favorite books is by Dr. Hong Liu, Hong, capital Liu. It's called the Healing Art of Qigong, but I know it by the title of Mastering Miracles.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the book that actually spawned my practicing. It fueled my practice to where I stopped coming up with an excuse as to why I wasn't going to practice, or I was too busy for this, or you didn't have time for that. And I started practicing every day. And when I did my first 100 days, it just kind of blew my mind.
Mm-hmm. So
It
I'll
had profound effect on me in many, many different ways.
okay. So I'm going to put that in the chat so people can catch because I spelled his name wrong the first time. Master
Mm-hmm.
Miracles by Hong Lu, and you said what is it?
Hong,
Mm-hmm.
capital Liu.
Oh, L-I-U. Okay.
Yep.
And what's the other title that the book goes by?
The Healing Art of Qigong.
Okay.
That's like the subtitle, but when they republished it, they
Mm-hmm.
republished it up the Healing Art of Qigong, but they're the same book.
Okay. Okay. So
So let me just add one thing.
please.
If I was going to talk about what I do now that's different from what I did a long time ago,
Mm-hmm.
I get up every morning and I pray. I
Mm-hmm.
get up every morning and I meditate, and I ask questions sometimes before I go into my meditation,
Mm-hmm.
because my experience is, and I'm actually writing a book on prayer, so hopefully it'll be done soon. But one of the things that I always tell people is, look, pray for what you want,
Mm-hmm.
but write down what you want. Write down what your goals are. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So, and make a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have to have somebody who's going to help you to be accountable to what your commitment was. So you got to tell a friend, or you got to tell an accountability partner what you're committed to doing,
Mm-hmm.
and then do it.
Mm-hmm.
But the prayer that I want to share is, after you finish your prayer, this is the prayer I want you to pray.
Mm.
Pray, I pray that I recognize when my prayer is being answered.
Mm.
The reason I use that is because my experience, not what somebody told me, my experience has proven to me that my prayers are always answered.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the answer is no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the answer is wait.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the answer is not yet.
Yes.
Okay. So, but I have never experienced my prayer not being answered. And I'll give you one good example of why I started praying this prayer. Years ago, I prayed, when I would be thinking about partnership, I just prayed, look, I don't want a guy who's has drama. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want a guy who's violent. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want a guy who doesn't keep his word. I don't want a man who doesn't have any integrity. I don't want a man who doesn't have courage. So in terms of dating, I noticed like I would give guys my number and then they wouldn't call.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point where I felt a little bit dejected or lonely. And then one day I had an epiphany.
Mm.
I'm walking down the street and it's like the epiphany is, didn't you pray for peace?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you pray for me to keep drama away from you? Didn't you pray for clarity? He said, well, I answered your prayer. Now stop complaining about being by yourself. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to send you the right person at the right time, but make sure you're preparing for partnership.
Mm. Mm.
Okay.
I love what you're saying there because many of us, prayer is can be like a one-way conversation, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, it's like we pray and it's like releasing balloons. We just kind of let it go and we think that's the end of it. But what you just said is like uh, a wisdom bomb of incredible proportions because it's saying, I've prayed the prayer. Now let me go about preparing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go about getting myself ready for when
Right.
that prayer shows up. So you all, the reason that, and I'm grateful for this conversation. Remember, we're talking about reclaiming your life on your own terms and how do you access some of the things that it's not about going out and spending thousands of dollars on something. Everything that Baba Kevin has articulated today, these are things that I think the most expensive thing that he's talked about so far is purchasing a book. So everything else is completely within your accessibility. And that's what the design studio is all about. How do you access those tools that are within your grasp right now? You don't have to go somewhere else to get it other than to sit with yourself. So the piece, Baba, that I think is so powerful for me that you just said is when you pray the prayer, pray that you recognize it, number one. And number two, as you're praying, start preparing.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. And then with the practice of Qigong, which is cultivating this energy, then
Mm-hmm.
I have the energy
Mm-hmm.
to do the things that are going to be a part of my preparation for the life
Mm-hmm.
that I'm praying for the not just the stuff, the life that I'm praying for.
I'm going to add one more thing.
Please
And
do.
this is something I talk about with my close friends all the time
Mm,
is that first you got to figure out what you want.
yes.
Then you got to figure out what's it going to cost? How much does it cost? And I'm not talking about money.
Mm-hmm.
What do I want?
Come on, preach now.
And what is it going to cost? What's the price that I have to pay in order to accomplish whatever it is? So, for example, someone just asked me, they said they want to learn Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it's easy. And they was like, no, it's not. And I said, that's why you haven't learned it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you believe you haven't even tried and you believe that something's too difficult for you. I said, 1 billion people speak Spanish. Why would you think that you can't learn it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's programming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The price is you have to sacrifice your negative programming if you want to have a positive life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have to sacrifice your negative belief system if you want to have a positive belief system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that means sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice some friends.
Oh,
I,
Baba.
I
Oh,
snuck that in there.
wait a
I,
minute. Wait a minute.
I,
I know y'all feeling this now. You
I,
better put it in the
I,
chat. That's you.
I snuck that in there because you're vibrating like this, and some people are vibrating like this, and some people are vibrating like this. And them old things that we talked about, like I hang out with people who practice Qigong and Tai Chi. I love it
Mm-hmm.
because their energy is wonderful. They're good people. They're making contributions. But I don't drink. I stopped drinking in my 20s, not because I hated alcohol, although I did come from a family of alcoholics, functional alcoholics. And me and our cousin were talking yesterday. We found out, I said, oh, they were alcoholic too? Oh my God. But but that's what they had to deal with because we're in such a different, actually better time than what they were in.
Yes.
But the point I wanted to make is that you gotta find out how much something costs, and you gotta ask yourself if you're willing to pay the price. But the other thing is you have to learn that you're worthy of every good thing that's on the planet. You're worthy of a healthy, loving relationship. But if you're telling yourself that it's hard to find, it's going to be hard to find because that's what you're telling yourself. So Qigong has taught me so much about cultivating a healthy mind. I'm going to say this. I know we got to get ready to close, but I'm going to say one of the things that's really interesting is about a warrior who is also an intellect, meaning that in martial arts, they're often the best martial artists are also the best poets, the best intellects, the best whatever, and it's about being the educated warrior. The educated warrior. I'm not saying it right. But there's a book I have. If I had it close, I would tell you the title. But it's about being a martial artist who's also intellectual, who's also a activist, who's also an educator, who's also involved in the community. So the point is that knowledge has always been power. And education has always been freedom. But when I say education, I'm not necessarily talking about school. I never graduated with a degree, although I have many friends who are bachelor's, master's, and PhD friends. But one of the things we talk about is that school was designed to teach you how to teach yourself. But sometimes education can be programming. And I know a lot of unemployed, educated people who have difficulty finding jobs and staying healthy. Because while we study everything, we didn't study what love is, but we got a master's or a PhD. We didn't study what spirit is. I mean, the things that are closest to us, we haven't studied. And I think that Qigong has helped me to really put my eye on all of that, because Qigong is the cultivation of the study of energy. Spirit is energy.
Yes.
Okay, when you die, the whole thing. The interesting thing is when my mom died, the minister who did her ceremony said it's a comma, not a period, meaning that there's still a relationship because the energy cannot be destroyed.
Yes.
So Qigong, as the study of the cultivation of energy, is many things. It's many things, but one thing that I can tell you. It saved my life, and my goal is to teach as many people Qigong as possible as a lay practitioner.
Yeah. Well, we've got a couple minutes left. So here's what I want to do for folks. So for folks that are interested in learning more with Baba Kevin about the study of the cultivation of energy, Qigong, on the screen, you'll see his email where you can reach out to him. But also you'll see a link here to a survey form if you're interested specifically in studying more about Qigong or just learning more with him about this Qigong and speaking further with him. You can click the link, and I will put this in the description below so you can access it there on YouTube, and I'll add it into Facebook as well. So as you're thinking about just today's conversation, this was a wonderful conversation, kind of a riff off, Baba, as you were talking about, reclaiming your life, and what are the things that you do to be able to support, reclaiming your life on your own terms, on really creating the life. What would be if you had one closing thing that you'd want to share with people, what would you want them to know?
you have to decide. You have to know what you want. All
Mm-hmm.
right. You have to know what you want. You have to know that if one person did it, you can do it too. You
Mm-hmm.
have to know that you're worthy of whatever it is that you're desiring.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you associate with people who are like-minded.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't um, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, that's their thing. God bless them if that's what they do, but that's not where I'm going to spend my time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm I really know that it's possible to have optimum health no matter what your health conditions are. So that's what I focus on in my own life, is just making sure. Like, I have several different kinds of illnesses, so I'm managing, but having something.
Mm-hmm.
What my family is learning is that having an illness, like a lot of diabetes runs in my family. And
Mm-hmm.
I tell people, I said, well, okay, you got diabetes, but have you studied how to overcome diabetes?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's there's two different types. I said, but for every ailment, there is a solution, and it's not always taking medicine. Sometimes it is, but I've always been I've never been anti-medicine.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been anti-stupid.
Mm. Mm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So for everything that I have going on, I always read up on what it is. If I'm taking medicine, I read up on what the side effects are.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people I've always worked with the acupuncturist, because acupuncturists were helping offset the side effects of medications before we got to the current class of meds that cause less problems. But that's another reason why many people are still here who didn't necessarily have who were on meds as well. Because
Yeah.
there are some people who are still here. But I went to a conference and I saw them, and I looked at me and I said, I made the right decisions.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but figure out what you want. Pray about it. Pray to learn how to get it. Whatever that is. If you want peace, so how do you cultivate peace? If
Mm-hmm.
you want to heal from a specific ailment, so you pray for I always pray for the right doctor. you know,
Mm.
and I also pray to make the right choices and right decisions myself,
Yeah.
because you're the first person who's affecting your health. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't I don't watch I don't let certain things in my brain. I don't watch TV right before I go to bed at night.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I listen to music that lifts me up every day, whether it be, I like gospel music. I like the sound of the river. I like the sound of the ocean. I
Yes.
like I like some hip hop, not the negative cursing hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
I like the uplifting hip hop, because hip hop was uplifting at one point as well.
Mm-hmm.
I like all kinds of music. I'm always, I'll give you what I learned from older people, but now I'm one of those older people that I used to interview. Do work you love,
Mm-hmm.
learn something new every day,
Mm.
eat the right food for your body type, eat the right food for your health. So
Yes.
that means you're going to have to learn what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Rest,
Mm.
regular exercise. Don't hang out with people that you don't like, even if they're your family.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Catch that. Catch that.
you
Catch it.
know,
Don't let obligations take you out.
but the most important thing is to understand that we're all worthy just because we were born. And
Yeah.
if we could understand that, and that if one person learns something, you can learn it too. But you got to learn. That old adage. It's funny. All those things I learned when I was younger, like know thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Man, all that stuff is so relevant and true now at 62. You
Yes.
know, and but yeah, pray regularly, get regular exercise, decide
Mm-hmm.
what you want. Don't share your dreams with people who can't help you accomplish them.
Oh, please repeat that.
Okay. Do not share your dreams with people who cannot help you to accomplish them. And the other, this is probably one of the most important things I'll say. Don't assume you can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say it again. I'm going to say it a different way. Assume that you can do everything. Until you find out for real that you can't. But what happens is we start out with the assumption that we can't.
Mm-hmm.
We start out with the assumption that it's not for us, or that we can't do this, or we can't do that, or we can't learn this, or we can't learn that.
Mm-hmm.
Assume that you can learn anything and everything
Mm-hmm.
until such time as it's actually proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Anybody can learn qigong. There's a form of qigong for every person. Like I've had people say, "Oh, I can't really move." I said, "Okay, I'm going to show you the exercise. Now, I don't want you to physically do it at all. I just want you to visualize it over and over and over and over again." You know why? Because when you visualize that exercise, your mind is going to do the same thing it would do. Your body's going to do the same thing it would do chemically.
Yes.
As though you had done it physically. And this is a core practice of premium athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Is they visualize making the shot a million times, and then you wonder, so why do they make the shot every time? Because they built a pathway in their brain of success over and over and over and over again, and
Yes.
it's the same for anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
You have to be willing to sacrifice your limited beliefs if you want to accomplish something that really is unlimited.
So here's the closing gift. I think that's it. You have to be willing to sacrifice your limiting beliefs. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, let me. Oh, go ahead, Baba.
No, I was just going to say, I don't think that's my quote. I've read so many different books that I may be paraphrasing somebody else's quote. So I just want to give credit that it's probably from one of the many teachers that I've read books. So don't take it that that's my quote. But the bottom line is, and this is from "As a Man Thinketh, So Shall He Be."
Mm-hmm.
So think, separate yourself from people who don't think, if that's not the kind of people you want to be around.
Mm-hmm.
And hang out and cultivate relationships with people who do think.
Yes.
Whatever you're interested in, hang out with those people that are doing what you're interested in. They're going to teach you, and ask people to mentorship. Find someone who's willing to mentor you, and don't do it unconsciously. Ask them, would you mentor me in whatever area of your life you're trying to accomplish? You'd be surprised. The reason why nobody ever mentored you because you never asked.
And the piece, because I know I have you all over time, so I want to say, for those that have come in for the hour, thank you for bringing your ideas, your energy, your focus into this conversation. And what I want to encourage you to do, check the chat. I tried to put in as many wisdoms bombs as I could keep up with from Baba Kevin. You'll see here on the screen how to be in touch with him if you would like to do more with him. But the thing that I just want to leave you with as we are closing the conversation is to simply say one of the many gifts of COVID has given, it has provided accessibility to people in ways that we simply may not have thought about before, because we can do it virtually. So as Baba was saying, looking for mentors, you can be somebody in the UK, in Britain, in someone in Lagos, Nigeria, someone in, Wisconsin can be mentoring you in a very real way. But once you get clear about what it is that you're going after, and you decide you're going to put yourself on that road, start making requests, start looking for people to be in your new circle of support for that life. And watch what blossoms as you tend that garden. So I want to say, Baba, thank you so very much. As I just so appreciate you being here with us today. So as we are closing out, I just want you all to remember, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so very much. You can find more information and past Practicing Positivity Studio guests on Facebook. Look for the TGC Positivity page. You can follow us on Twitter just to stay aware of when new studios are being scheduled. And of course, here in YouTube on the channel, all of our conversations are housed there. I will make sure that I put in the contact information and the form from Baba Kevin for you all, so that you can, if you want to learn more with him, you are able to do that. And from there, I just simply want to leave you with, on this fabulous Friday, as we are moving forward, I am simply saying, enjoy, enjoy. And as Baba has said, please receive his invitation. Make the choice that you are worthy of the life that you desire, and assume you have everything that you need or can get it to have it.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Baba Kevin, on this
You're
holiday.
welcome.
I appreciate you. Thank y'all so much. And we will see you coming up for the next studio. Keep following, subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk with you soon.